So in today's video, we're going to be covering how to make high converting abandoned cart and checkout automations. This is a crash course. I'm going to teach you how to be an anomaly from this statistic for commerce where 70% of shopping carts are actually left abandoned. Now, in order to solve for this equation, we are going to be taking people who are in added to cart, try to get them to reach checkout, and then from reach checkout to completed checkout. Our objective is get to the completed checkout stage. In order to understand how we achieve this, it's two major things that our agency follows. Essentially, number one, you need to be making sure the relevancy of your marketing is on point. Can you hit customers at the right time in order to convert them? And number two, your offers. Do you have the right product offer in order to convert a customer? And do you have the right incentive in order to get them to sign up for email marketing as well? So I'm going to show you exactly how to do all of this while becoming more profitable. And that's the key to this video. It's very different to whatever else you watched on YouTube regarding this conversation. Essentially, what I want to do is help use these automations in order to help your business grow and not just increase top line revenue, but how do you use these automations as a powerhouse to reduce the cost to acquire a customer and increase the amount of profit you're making per customer. And it's fairly simple. There are two major flows that you can do to help with abandoned carts. Number one is added to cart or abandoned cart. Essentially what this is getting customers from your added to cart stage to your reach checkout stage. And for this specifically, it triggers when you hit the add to cart button on a website. And for this instance, I put up Hexclad on the screen where you can see as soon as I click this button, this would trigger. What's really important to keep in mind is you would need to have the customer's email address before they click this button in order to trigger this automation. Now, the abandoned checkout is a little different. The abandoned checkout triggers essentially when someone enters this page, and our objective is to go from reach checkout to completed checkout. This automation is a little bit more complex. It triggers once your customer reaches this page, which is the actual checkout page which you're all familiar with. And our objective is to get them from reach checkout to completed checkout, which means they've made a purchase. Now, what's important to keep in mind is there's two types of customers within this automation. Obviously, there's much more permutations and variations once you actually get into the intricacies of making the flow. But when you go to this field specifically, Shopify stores typically have a setting where you can enable the ability to automatically collect email addresses. If you haven't done it, I would do it. And essentially what happens is when a customer puts their contact information here and they start filling out the rest of their details and they abandon checkout, if this is already on and you're collecting your customer email address through this field and you're not collecting it through a pop-up form, essentially what this is called is implicit consent. Implicit consent is the concept that that a customer is opting into marketing emails, but they're doing it implicitly by reaching the stage and having that checkbox on and not actually signing up for your emails the traditional way. And so keep that in mind for the rest of this video because it will be very important when I get to creating an abandoned checkout flow with you. In order to make sure that your automations are actually working, you want to go to your Klaviyo or your ESP of choice and make sure that the triggers actually exist. For added to cart, we want to make sure that the metric exists here, and you actually want there to be numbers. If it's flat, that's a bad sign. This is our test account, which means there's no data. But ideally, you would see tests like this where it actually shows you, how many people have entered the automation. And then you also want to go to checkout started and make sure that there are events that exist in this as well. So once you ensure the metric is actually shooting, it's integrated well. If this is not working and it looks somewhat like what this one looks like right now, you would go to integrations and you would go to Shopify. Under Shopify, you would reintegrate this and just double check to make sure that's working. Because if there's no one entering this automation, there's almost no point in you setting it up. Now, in order to create the flow, essentially what you want to do is click create flow and go to abandoned. And we're going to do this for cart and checkout, right? So we'll start with the cart because this is the simpler automation, and then we'll go to checkout. To go to abandoned cart, you want to make sure that it is the abandoned cart. Once again, the difference is the Shopify added to cart trigger. We're going to click this and we are going to click use template. Now, for the sake of time in this video, I'm just going to be going over emails and not SMSs. So I will be deleting this SMS. It is a great practice to have SMS within your abandonment flows because it makes it twice as powerful. Now, essentially what we want to do here is we're going to move everything to this section and I'm going to delete the no path. Once I delete the no path, essentially what I want to change here is the actual hours it takes. Typically, I wait between 45 minutes to an hour for the first touch point here. That's especially because there is a consideration period for your customers, and you want to make sure that they actually take some time to think about it before you are just spamming them with emails. Sometimes, depending on the actual funnel itself, let's say you are selling a product that actually gets shopped for really quick and there isn't much of a consideration period, you can turn this down to like 10 minutes. But let's say it's a car or a sauna that you're selling. You can keep this at an hour, right? And then for the follow-ups, you actually want to lengthen the follow-ups if your product costs a lot more. If your product does not cost a lot more, you can reduce the time as well, right? And so for this added to cart, for the sake of time, again, we're going to have one email here, and we'll have a second email here. And essentially what you're going to do for added to cart is check the trigger, ensure that you have these profile filters. Checkout started 0 times since starting this flow, which essentially means when someone is in this automation and they move to checkout, they will be removed from this automation and they'll be onto the next one. And then placed order 0 times since starting this automation, which means once they've added to cart, they haven't placed any orders and has not been in this flow for the last 7 days. This typically works for us. Sometimes it is best practice to actually increase the frequency of this or decrease the frequency by increasing the time. So we make it 14 days. For email 1, essentially what you want is, again, a nudge. So we typically keep this as the nudge email. And then email number 2 is typically a email that goes more after the customer and shows unique USPs, right? You go back to convincing the customer because we know at this point they weren't 100% convinced when they were on our landing page, whereas this one was more of a nudge to let them know that there is a product in their cart that they are missing, right? And I will design one of these with you shortly. Now, if you want to go one more step and become a advanced flow builder and you want to actually have a customer journey, there is a few things we do. Now, for most stores, if you do have a customer that you intend on bringing back to your website and you want them to shop multiple times, we always add a conditional split that allows us to identify whether this is a new customer or whether it's a return customer. Think about it this way. For new customers, you're paying Meta and Google, or you're putting a ton of work in organic to get the customer. So you have a customer acquisition cost. And so at this point, your objective is to be as aggressive with the customer in order to convert them. So with return buyers, because you've also already built trust, they've already purchased your product before, we don't want to target them with the same funnel. We want to ensure that we're not explaining why they need to buy from our brand because they are already familiar with our brand. We are just nudging them to buy certain products. We are not pushing as many discounts because we have already built trust with the customer, right? And so when setting up this conditional split, what you want to do is do what someone has done or not done, and what someone has done, placed order at least once, overall time, and you want to hit save. So if they have placed order overall time at least once, you now will say yes. So if a customer is a return customer, they will go here. If a customer is not a return customer, they will go to this branch over here. And so next, what we're going to do, and we will fill this out, what we're going to do is another advanced version of this automation is adding a conditional split under customers who are new. So now let's say you're an apparel company where you have customers who buy up to $3,000 worth of goods, but you also have customers who shop maybe just a hat from you and it's $20, right? Essentially what we do is we treat these carts very differently. We've had a lot of hobby stores that we've worked with where they have customers who spend up to $20,000 and some customers who spend $10. And so essentially what you can do here is you would add a trigger split. And essentially what a trigger split is it will tell you based on this action, how you can make multiple different branches. And so during this trigger split, based on added to cart, we can actually see the value of the cart. And let's say the value is greater than let's say $1,000, because we consider those high value customers. We now have an automation that will go for high value first time customers and low value first time customers. And so what I can do in this instance is for this branch, I can treat these customers differently. And instead of giving them 10% off, I can give them $50 off their cart, which saves me $50 in margin. And it allows me to make my discount seem psychologically bigger because I'm giving them $50 off their cart, right? With all these instances, we test everything, but I just want to show you how advanced you can actually get and how you can make this automation work for your business instead of using a cookie cutter automation that you learned that will actually work against your business when it's not set up for it itself, right? And so if you want to go deeper into understanding how to make these automations work for you, you can book a call down below. We do audits all the time for brands in order to get a better understanding of how you can maximize the platform. So go ahead and book that call if you want to learn more. Now, going back to this automation, what we are going to do is you will want to set up these two emails first, and then you can clone them over here. And so for the sake of time, I'm just going to edit one with you. For a subject line, essentially what you want to do is just add, did you forget something? And you can make this as easy as you left your cart behind, or have you checked your cart? right? Very, very easy to come up with subject lines, test new things, but always lead with urgency. We try to add emojis here. It always helps. And then you can add levels of personalization, right? But in this instance, when it's added to cart, I wouldn't add too much personalization. Now on this email, essentially what you want to do for the basics of design is you want to ensure you reduce the number of links. You don't want customers clicking things aside from complete their purchase. Their entire objective is you get them back to their cart. We're going to remove the social links here. And now for dropping content, I'm going to grab one of our clients' headers and footers, and I'm going to show you essentially how to make the email. So essentially what I've done is I've just added a little header here, and I'm going to add a logo, right? So all I have to do is put the Infinity Hoop link address, and then here I have an image with the header itself. So the answer you see has been there all along. Invest in the easiest way to become a happier, healthier and happier you. This is a copy that aligns with their actual brand, that aligns with the pains that they solve for, right? And all the landing pages sort of lead to this moment where people want an easy way to be healthy and happy, which is what they always preach. And so that's why the copy says that over here. And then from there, we have said, we saved all the great items in your cart. So this is the original templated copy. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to go in this image and the link address. I can actually place this exact URL. Alternatively, what you can also do is just take this link address, and now when I put it in a new tab, it'll automatically take me to the cart, right? Essentially what we're going to do is take this text. We are going to now delete it, because when we preview this email, we also want to make sure that our product is very high up and that our customer still sees the product as soon as they open it, right? So if we're previewing this, as soon as you open it, you will see the product itself. What you can do is you can also modify these instances. And so let's say I want to keep this for desktop because the format looks amazing on desktop right here. But then on mobile, it's to the left and I want the center aligned. You can always make different things for desktop and mobile. So in most cases, what we'll do here is on desktop, we will go to the display. We will make this desktop only. And then on this, we'll go to display, make it mobile only. And then when we go to mobile, you can actually modify what it looks like on here. So when you go to the content, you can just go over here, make this all text aligned in the center. So on mobile, as you can see, essentially what I've done is I have added this little section, and now when we preview and test it for mobile as well, you can see that it is center aligned instead of it being right aligned or left aligned, right? So now we also have added a footer section. This is essentially what I just added from same Figma, right? So we actually have a Figma where you can see the actual email. We have added the footer section. Essentially, you would want to cut this up a little bit more just for deliverability, add alt text behind it. That's very best practice. But again, I'm going to do this for the sake of time. The main thing to actually take note of here is you are relaying those USPs about why people buy the product. But here, as you can notice, we're a little sneaky. We have additional freebies in your cart. Infinity Hoop offers go fast, just like our customer's waistline. That's some beautiful copy. Go back to your cart and make the most of your order, right? So it's like really, really just talking so much about the cart. We're not asking them to make a purchase. We're not asking them to make a macro level commitment where we're saying you need to buy our product right now. All we're saying is return to your cart. It's a slight nudge, and essentially what we're doing is pushing them in the right direction to make the purchase. And if your customer doesn't reach a purchase, that's what the next automation for, right? So abandoned checkout is actually going to help you get that conversion over the line. And so there's a lot more granularity that you can add to this. We can definitely modify and sit here. That's what our team does, right? Like we actually sit here and try to make sure everything is granular and good. But in this instance, I don't want to, sit down and make this entire video about one email. What I'm going to do for the subject line as well is we can do something like forgetting something, which is what I added earlier, and then see what you left behind, right? Again, you want to really think this copy through. You don't want to just have two generic subject lines. We try to make it very unique, try to be very intentional about your company. But again, the most important things is making sure that this design is nailed. So once we are done with this copy, email 2 will be a lot more nudgy. And so over here, we try to go a bigger nudge, right? Some brands will offer discounts. What you can also alternatively do is just say there isn't many in stock. And what you can also do is add things like just social proof. And so in this instance, we have, you're investing in a healthier, happier you. What's everyone saying? They removed 2 inches from their waistline. We're adding stats about the USPs, and added to cart is still continuing as a reminder. And so what you want to do here, based off this logic that we added, and this is again, just one example of one added to cart automation, you can clone the email you made for the nudge. And let's say in Infinity Hoop, they sell products and values that are greater than $1,000. You can actually make your CTA call us now, right? And there's functions in Klaviyo where you can get them to call a number based off clicking the CTA. And what I would do in this instance, if I'm a brand who wants customers to call in if their cart value is high enough, is just modify the CTA here. And then maybe you have a lot more nudges, right? Or maybe you have a instance where you are sending more personalized emails, saying, adding a plain text saying, very excited for you to experience the brand. This is a personal note. Feel free to respond to this email. And then you have your customer support agents responding to that specific email because you know that it's a high value customer. So you're going to take the time to get that conversion. That's going the extra mile to really make a ton more money. And at the end of the day, recover a lot more abandoned checkouts and make more profitability, right? Doing things intentionally is what's super, super important. Now for return customers, we essentially change the angle a little bit, right? So for return customers, what we do over here is we might still do the forgetting something. But in this instance, what we would change for a lot of the email copy here is, the answer you seek has been here all along. We changed that to more of a glad to see you're back. Did something else pique your interest ? And that's what creates rapport with the customers who are just returning, because you get the chance to be much more aggressive with new customers, but you don't want to be that aggressive with the returning customers. And so you want to create a different and unique angle there. Moving on. So we are going to get to the abandoned checkout flow. And this one is a lot more complex than the initial one. So for abandoned checkout, you essentially just need to go to this over here. You're going to create the automation. And once you create the automation, essentially what we do is we go to when checkout started, has not been in this flow the last 7 days. Wait, again, we try to make this wait time as little as possible. And then we also test to make sure that it is working effectively. So let's say this is 30 minutes. Essentially what you're going to do here is we're going to delete this again for the sake of time, specifically stick to email only. I'm going to remove this condition, or we can keep this conditional split for now, but instead of can receive SMS, we're going to do what someone has done or not done. Again, placed order at least once overall time, or we can also do 0 times overall time, but in the last one we did at least once overall time. So if yes, right? If they have placed order at least once overall time, yes, they will go to this. So this is return customers again. No, then that means they will go to new customers. So when creating the abandoned checkout automation, we essentially create this. It will look somewhat like this. I've moved a few things around, but you want it to look like this. And what I'm going to do is reduce this down to 10 minutes. We want to be as aggressive as possible when it comes to abandoned checkout, because this is the closest your customer is to getting across the finish line of making a conversion. Now, what I'm going to do over here is, and this is something that's very unique to our agency, and I want you to pay very close attention, because I said this at the beginning of our YouTube video that there is 2 versions of consent. Customers who implicitly consent, which means when I go to a website and I go over here, if I am shopping now, let's say shop this, add to cart, and I check out. Ooh, we need to blur all of that. Check out as guest. So what's happening now is when I check out as a guest, if I have not signed up on a sign up form yet, and I only sign up using this over here, which is a implicit consent, this check mark. So let's say I leave checkout right now. This has still made it so that I am consenting to receiving email marketing from the brand, but I'm doing it implicitly and not explicitly. And so in order to market these customers differently, essentially what we've set up is this little block here, where we have in newsletter in the last 1 hour, what someone has done or not done, received email, where message is the welcome series email 1 ID. And I can show you exactly how to do it here. That's one of our layouts for our clients. And so what I would do over here again is I would check conditional split. I would do a conditional split after the wait. During the conditional split, I would see what someone has done or not done. Received email. You're going to hit this little filter here where message. And then what you're going to do for here is you want to, and then after you make this message, what you're going to do for this equals is you are actually going to go to your welcome series. Go to email 1 where you give customers a discount. You're going to edit this email and you're going to grab this link right over here. This little code, you're going to copy. You're going to go back to this and you're going to put the code that you just found, and it should autocorrect to this welcome email 1. You want to do the code because what happens is a lot of brands have multiple different codes inside and multiple different variations of emails. So sometimes it's very hard to keep a track. I use the code for granularity. And then here, you're going to do 0 times overall time. And I'm going to click and if someone can or cannot receive email marketing. I'm going to do and if someone is or is not in a list. I'm going to choose my primary list and was added in the last 1 hour, right? Because what this helps prevent me from doing is I'm not going to spam. And this is how I make sure that only customers who have recently joined the list. Customers who are implicitly consented are not going to be targeted as the explicit consent because they've never received the actual discount code itself. And they joined the newsletter right now, right? Like they literally just joined the newsletter. So after setting up this conditional split, I now have two branches. If it is yes, it is implicit consent. If it is no, it is explicit consent. And so what I'm also going to do is for most of our brands, we also always try to keep a conditional split over here, where what we can do is separate what someone has done or not done. And again, placed order, and we can do 0 times overall time. We'll do it at least once because you want it to be congruent with all the other ways we've set it up for placed order. So if they've placed order at least once, this is returning customers. Once you go down to no, over here, in yes, it is implicit consent customers. In no, it is explicit consent customers. And what's going to happen here is we are going to drag all of this back. And now what we do is we set up 2 types of abandoned carts. For the implicit consent customer, we set up a version where we try to build trust and we give them the offer right away, right? So as an example, if you have a welcome offer, you can offer your customer a welcome offer email right here. And so let's say you have a welcome offer. You can actually use that discount and say, hey, I noticed you left your abandoned cart behind, or you left your cart behind and you haven't finished checkout. You can use an offer here. Let's say customer signed up with the pop-up form. You can create a different email saying, don't let your items get away. And this is a normal abandoned cart. And then what we're going to do is we are going to link it back so that way we have 2 different versions, one for an implicit customer, one for an explicit customer. And then they would go back to the same abandoned checkout emails, right? Your objective would be once they have been separated, now you have abandoned checkout emails going after each and every customer. For this email strategy, I'm just going to show you the Figma because it is quite long. For new customers, now keep in mind, we made this automation over 2 years ago. And so you can do much better than this. I would highly recommend that you beat this. I'm just showing this for the sake of the fact that this client is okay with us showing this outside. For abandoned checkout, the process of this, we essentially do, you left something behind in your cart. Your cart's still waiting for you, right? So return to checkout, return to cart. Over here, we're telling them, hey, continue to checkout. And so after the first 2 reminders, we're giving them a discount. We are letting them know about their discount. So we're reminding them of their discount. And then if the discount doesn't work by email 4, essentially what we're trying to do is let them know about social proof again, right? So you want a reviews email, let them know about all the excellent things. And then from there, you can go back discounts. For this brand, we didn't want to go into laddering discounts. So you can actually take the discount even higher if they haven't converted by this point. But essentially what we did is just reminded them that, hey, from 72 hours now you only have 24 hours before it's gone for good. So that way customers actually knew that their offer was going to expire and it doesn't just stay forever. And so hopefully these emails give you a little bit of inspiration. You can be much more creative than this. This is one of the most basic templates we've created, but hopefully it gives you context on what it could look like. For return customers, essentially what I would do is have similar emails, right? Where you add similar emails, abandoned cart 1, then you wait a few hours. And then for return customers, essentially what I would do is something similar where you wait 10 minutes and then you nudge them. But essentially this time, what typically we try to promote is instead of letting them know that they left something behind, we use copy that makes our brand feel familiar, like back again. We show them their product. So we show, the package that they already have received because they've purchased from us before. And then we also show them things like join the loyalty program. You actually get a certain amount back for this because we have cash back. And so you can go much more complex. And because again, these customers are people who have shopped from you before, you actually are more profitable on these customers. So maybe you can offer further discounts, or if you don't want to train them on discounts, you can actually just push less urgency, but push the idea of, you want this because you've shopped from us before. So with all that being said, you need to remember, none of this can be cookie cutter. You want to optimize it for your business. Do you have the margins to actually create discounts within these automations? If not, how can you use tactics that don't use margin or don't utilize discounts? If you got a lower AOV product, the consideration period for your buyer is typically low. So if you're buying a drink, you want to reduce the time between emails, right? That's why I didn't give you an outline for how many hours you should be using, because for each brand, it should be very different. For a drinks company, for a food company, we would use 5 minutes. We might use 30 minutes, and then we might use an hour. But for a funnel where you are very hard trying to sell this customer, we would use 20 minutes, an hour, right? But then let's say you are going to a return customer, you want to increase the time between sends because you already know that they know why they're shopping from you. And then same thing for a larger AOV product, like let's say it's a sauna, you don't want to actually send them a ton of emails saying you need to buy it now, but you want to be more careful with how you go about offers. And so call us now or call it. So a few tactics to actually increase your conversion rates even more on these automations. You can include things like dynamic variables. So I already showed you within these abandoned checkout automations. As an example for abandoned cart email 1, this also has dynamic content, right? Abandoned checkout. So we can say, hey, you've abandoned checkout. And then over here, this is the stuff that was within their checkout, right? So this is a checkout section. And so that's a dynamic product. What we can also do in order to increase the dynamic variables, considering the fact that this is at checkout and they might have added their first name, you can also add personalization like first name and then put friend and then put insert. So you can say, don't leave this behind. Alternatively, you can add personalization like over here, we have personalization that will tell you the discount value. So you can add the value of a discount. You can add how many items are within their actual cart. And then you can also do things like current date, right? So we actually have done things like current date where you insert the current date. And then what Klaviyo will also allow you to do is variable math. And so instead of saying your offer expires something like it expires in 24 hours, if today is November 27th, I can say your offer expires on November 28th at 11:59 p.m. Right? So the more dynamic you make it, you can see how that increases conversion. And the last few things, add countdown timers. That's worked really well for us. And then segment by value, like I just showed you, it really, really helps. One last bonus tip and trick that I will give you that we try to do, and you might have noticed it within this as well, is we do add profile property updates. In the profile property details, we do things like we do try to figure out how we can add people into segments when they start each of these automations. And essentially what that allows us to do is isolate customers. So once they are in this automation, they're not receiving any other outside noise except for the fact that they abandoned checkout. Because again, like I prefaced with this video, the main thing that matters is relevancy, making sure you're relevant to your customers and you're sending at the relevant times. And so if you can avoid sending them outside noise, outside campaigns and different offers, and just make sure that they get through the checkout process, it's the most tactical way to convert your customers. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please comment and subscribe. That's the only way I know that I should keep making these. I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. I'm sharing everything that works for our agency. I know even on the client side, I got approval to share a few things. And so if you are enjoying these, please comment and let me know. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them.